Sometimes in sports, it's not the goals, the saves, or even the championships that end up defining history. It's a single decision, one choice, made in a tense boardroom or over a quiet phone call, can ripple through decades of a franchise's story. And in the summer of 2022, one player made a choice that would not just shift two teams' fates, but would completely rewrite the competitive landscape of the NHL. That player, Matthew Kachuk. At the time, Kachuk wasn't just another star forward. He was the heartbeat of Calgary's offense. A young, fiery competitor who embodied everything the Flames thought they wanted to be. Tough, talented, and relentless. Fans loved him, opponents hated him, and teammates relied on him. But then came the moment that blindsided Calgary. After years of building his career there, after carving out an identity as a cornerstone of the franchise, Matthew Kachuk quietly let the organization know he wasn't coming back. And with that, the countdown began. A franchise-altering trade was no longer a question of if, but when. To understand why this moment hits so hard, you have to picture it. It's the end of the 2021-22 season. The Flames have just been eliminated from the playoffs by their biggest rival, the Edmonton Oilers. Players linger on the ice at the Saddle Dome watching the Oilers celebrate. The sting is immediate. For fans, it's heartbreak. For Matthew Kachuk, it's something more. A moment of clarity. This loss wouldn't just be the end of the season. It would be the last time he would wear the flaming C on his chest. Now, this wasn't something Kachuk announced on Instagram or in some dramatic post-game interview. No, it started quietly, behind closed doors, where the 24-year-old forward made it known to management. He had no plans to sign a long-term extension in Calgary. For a player of his caliber, that's a ticking time bomb. If the Flames waited too long, they'd risk losing him for nothing in free agency, just like they were about to with another superstar, Johnny Gaudreau. The hockey world didn't know it yet, but the 2022 NHL offseason was about to become one of the most chaotic in modern history. The thing is, the Flames weren't a struggling team in 2022. They were thriving. Their regular season was a resounding success. 50 wins, 21 losses, 11 overtime losses. That's 111 points. Their best season since 1988-89, back when they won the Stanley Cup. Johnny Gaudreau had silenced critics with the best season of his career. 40 goals, 115 points, and a league-leading +64 rating. 90 of those points came at even strength, a staggering number in the modern game. Matthew Kachuk was right there alongside him, setting career highs of his own. 42 goals, 104 points, +57 rating. These two weren't just productive, they were dominant. From the outside, it looked like a dream pairing that could lead Calgary deep into the playoffs for years. Inside, things weren't so certain. Gaudreau was entering unrestricted free agency. Kachuk was a restricted free agent with arbitration rights, meaning if Calgary kept him, they'd need to pay up, and soon. Both players knew they had leverage, and both had started thinking about their futures somewhere else. On July 13th, 2022, the first domino fell. Johnny Gaudreau, after months of speculation, shocked the hockey world by signing a 7-year, $68.25 million contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets. For Calgary fans, this wasn't just a disappointment, it was a gut punch. Not only had they lost their star winger, but he was leaving for a team that hadn't sniffed playoff contention in years. His reason? He wanted to be closer to family in the US, and Columbus gave him that opportunity. That left Matthew Kachuk as the last superstar standing. Surely the Flames would lock him up now, right? Wrong. Just days later, reports surfaced. Kachuk had informed the team he wouldn't sign a long-term deal either. Whether it was lifestyle, organizational direction, or simply wanting a new challenge, the decision was made. He was done in Calgary. Now the Flames were cornered. They had two options. 1, let him play out his final year, walk in free agency, and get nothing. 2, trade him now and hope the return could somehow soften the blow. They chose door number 2. On July 22nd, 2022, the NHL world erupted in shock. Late that evening, word broke that Matthew Kachuk was officially on his way out of Calgary. The deal was staggering. Kachuk was headed to the Florida Panthers, along with a conditional 4th-round pick in 2025. In return, Calgary was bringing in Jonathan Huberdeau, Mackenzie Weegar, Cole Schwindt, and a conditional 1st-round pick in 2025. At first glance, many analysts believed the Flames had pulled off a miracle. Huberdeau had just tied Johnny Gaudreau for second in league scoring with 115 points, led the NHL in assists, and was widely regarded as one of the best playmakers in the game. Weegar was an underrated but highly reliable top-pairing defenseman who could log heavy minutes in all situations. Throw in a young forward and a first-round pick, and it seemed like Calgary had managed to turn a difficult situation into a franchise-saving haul. But Florida wasn't making this deal to win the press conference. They had just experienced one of the most successful regular seasons in their history, finishing with the best record in the league and capturing the President's Trophy. Yet in the playoffs, all that dominance meant nothing. They were swept out of the second round by the Tampa Bay Lightning, exposing a glaring flaw. The Panthers had skill, they had speed, but they lacked that raw, abrasive, playoff-ready presence that could tilt a series. Kachuk was the answer to that problem. He wasn't just a star scorer. He was the kind of player who could get under opponents' skin, score the backbreaking goal, and set the emotional tone for an entire locker room. For Florida, this was a gamble worth making, even if it meant sending away one of their most productive players in franchise history. In the days that followed, both teams doubled down on their choices. The Panthers wasted no time, signing Kachuk to an 8-year, $76 million extension before he had even played a single game in their jersey. Calgary quickly locked in Huberdeau with an 8-year, $84 million contract, making him the highest paid player in franchise history. Both franchises believed they had just secured their future. What no one could predict at that moment was how differently those futures would play out. The trade was just step one. Step two, get those players signed. Florida wasted no time, locking Kachuk into an 8-year, $76 million extension before he'd even played a game. Calgary did the same with Huberdeau, handing him an 8-year, $84 million deal, a franchise record contract. On paper, both teams got what they wanted. Star power locked in for the long haul, but this was a gamble for both sides. Huberdeau was 29, coming off a career year that some feared might be his peak. Kachuk was younger, but could he repeat his breakout numbers in a new system? The answer to that question would come quickly and decisively. From the moment Kachuk landed in Florida, it was clear he was exactly what the Panthers needed. His blend of skill, grit, and trash-talking swagger made him an instant fan favorite. He didn't just fit into the lineup, he redefined it. In his first season, he put up 40 goals and a career-high 109 points. He dragged the Panthers into the playoffs, then threw a gauntlet of opponents, including a stunning first-round upset of the record-breaking Boston Bruins. He scored clutch goals, delivered highlight reel hits, and became the emotional engine of a team that reached the Stanley Cup final. Calgary's first year without him, a different story. Huberdeau's production cratered, dropping from 115 points to just 55. The Flames missed the playoffs entirely, looking slower, older, and more uncertain about their future. If year one was a warning sign, year two was full-blown confirmation. Florida didn't just make another deep run, they went to back-to-back Stanley Cup finals, winning 2 straight championships. Kachuk's fingerprints were all over both titles, from big game performances to the locker room culture he'd helped reshape. He wasn't just a piece of the puzzle, he was the piece. Meanwhile, Calgary was staring down the reality of Huberdeau's long contract and declining production. The return that once looked like a masterstroke now felt like a burden. 3 years later, the trade is still the subject of debate. Some Flames fans argue it was the best they could have done given the circumstances. Others see it as the moment the franchise's competitive window slammed shut. The team has shifted focus toward a retool, leaning on recent draft picks to build a new core. There's still hope, but it's hope for the future, not the present. Huberdeau, now deep into his massive deal, continues to produce in the 50 to 60 point range. It's solid, but not what you pay $10.5 million a year for. In the end, the Matthew Kachuk trade wasn't just a transaction, it was a turning point. For Florida, it marked the start of a championship era. For Calgary, it became the line in the sand between what was and what's next. One man's decision to move on created ripple effects that will shape the NHL for years to come. And if history has taught us anything, it's this. Sometimes the biggest plays in hockey don't happen on the ice. They happen in the moments when a superstar decides it's time to go.